morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to Talk of the Town for this Thursday. Yeah, first day of October. For those of us who have to do quarterly reports and quarterly things, we only have one more to do this year after today or after this. Well, I'll try to get mine done today. But anyway, my name is Gary Stevens. Glad you are with us. And we'll have some open line time to chat with you after the 10 o'clock news. Patty Vandenberg will be in less than an hour with what's new around Holland. And we'll have Wellspring from Spectrum Health Zealand Community Hospital. But it is the first Thursday of the month, which means that we are joined by the city manager for the city of Holland, Keith Van Beek. Keith, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary. It's always good to be with you. Hey, you said quarterly reports. It's actually the end of the first quarter in the city budget. So quite frankly, I'm working on my first quarterly update right now that I'll give to council here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, at least you got a couple of weeks. We have 10 days. We got to get our quarterlies done to keep the FCC pretty happy. Before we talk about why we are able to have Keith Van Beek chatting with us right now, I do want to touch upon a story that was in the Sentinel this morning, and the city of Holland's going to be involved with it, even though they are only a part of the West Michigan Regional Authority. They're going to help Greg Robinson and the authority find a new airport director. Exactly what does that entail? What's the city's responsibility in that?
Yeah, so the city has for a long time had a contractual relationship is what I would say, just supporting some of the administrative functions of the airport authority. So we've been asked, and our human resource, our HR function is just supporting the authority as they go through that search process. And for a long time, Holland residents and HTC listeners, you recognize the name Greg Robinson, and he's just such a fantastic guy and just a humble public servant who served the city of Holland so well for so many years, but then has been the contract employee for the airport. But I think he's come to the point where he said, all right, I'm really going to enjoy retirement now. So he's coming to the end of that stint also.
So to a certain extent, it's partly maybe replacing him, but also showing the importance of the airport in terms of whether, how it's going to expand in the uses of the airport. Having somebody at the helm on a full-time basis, if it hasn't been already done, certainly should help.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even in COVID, Gary, what we've heard, and I think, you just ran a story there about our national airline system, right? Just for the health of our local businesses and them doing global work, I think our local airport is really an important cog in the wheel of our economy. So I think this is a good move by the airport authority, and however we can support them in that, we're happy to do that.
395-1450. If you have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, this is the time to chat with him. We'll take a break about 9:50 for a CNBC update. But until the top of the hour, hey, get your questions lined up. We'll put them in the queue at 395-1450, 395-1450. Now, the purpose, let's put it this way. We are very pleased every first Thursday of the month to have Keith Van Beek join us, talk about what's going on at Holland City Hall, but maybe a little bit more appreciative today because, frankly, probably we would have had Mr. Van Dyken in because you would have been busy with the Michigan Municipal League Conference and would not be available to chat with us.
Yeah, another COVID impact, right? For a lot of listeners out there, you probably haven't been to a conference this year. And this is the week where the Michigan Municipal League was supposed to have our annual conference. This year, I don't know on what rotation, we would have been on Mackinac Island. But instead, I'm here at City Hall, happy to be here. And once I get off of this call, Gary, I'm going to jump in on a Zoom call and catch the end of the opening session. I think there's a lot of speakers, including Governor Whitmer, addressing the Michigan Municipal League, probably right about now.
Okay, we'll try to. Hey, folks, call Greg now. Call Keith now, 395-1450, 395-1450. We want to keep him busy. I know that's very important to be informed with some of the other leaders of cities throughout the state in a very important conference. As again, we're trying to all negotiate this COVID-19 situation, and sometimes there is strength and unity in that regard there, Keith.
Yeah, I find it's very helpful that when not only myself, but when council members go and you just share best practices, you hear about an idea that someone else in another portion of the state has encountered an obstacle, has encountered a problem and said, hey, we solved it this way. I always think those are the best takeaways from getting together with people. It's a little bit harder right now, obviously, because you can't have those, talks across the lunch table, or you happen to sit next to someone you've never met before from Owasso or, Cedar Springs, or all the friends that you meet in this business when you go to those conferences. But we're doing the best, and happy, quite frankly, to sleep in my own bed every night, Gary.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek. I am going to bring up a question. This caller has not called in yet because I told her, call on Thursday morning. Keith Van Beek, the Holland City Manager, will be on, and he can be able to maybe note down your concern and do something about it.
Oh, you set me up that I have to have the right answer now, Gary, didn't you?
Not so much the right answer, but maybe something that maybe you can direct staff to on a situation. It was a caller from the north side, lives on the other side of Lake Mac. Not happy with the sounds wafting across Lake Mac from Boatworks. Music kind of loud. And I said, well, granted, you're a north side resident, so to a certain extent, you're not a tax-paying constituent of the city of Holland, which has the jurisdiction on that. But still, noise complaints, especially in the case with Boatworks. No disrespect meant to Boatworks, but you get the sounds bouncing off the water. It can carry a long way, and maybe they got a good point in that regard. How do you handle noise situations such as this?
Yeah, that's a good one. And you did note it that the weird characteristics on the water are interesting, right? Like I was always reminded when I go to the cottage sometimes that you have to be careful of those conversations that you're having on the fishing boat that you think no one else can hear. And, you get back to shore and they said, we could hear every word that you just said, how noise carries over water. But what I would encourage people to do, not only in that situation, but in other situations with noise complaints, call the non-emergency number. Because quite frankly, a lot of times, when do those noise complaints happen, Gary? They happen nights and weekends, right? So you call the non-emergency number of the police department, and they'll go out and do an assessment of that noise. And we try always, of course, not to write tickets or anything like that first, but they do an assessment of if they think, that noise actually is too loud or not. And I'm sure there's a volume knob at the sound system at Boatworks, and I bet some nights it's turned up maybe a little bit more than other nights, and then we can encourage them just to turn it down a little bit if it happens to be too loud.
The reason why I sort of bring it up with you, Keith, is the fact that there are restrictions. There are some ordinances that city council obviously has, but also the city staff can be able to enact. And so if you get more than, obviously one complaint on a night, call the, deputies, call the police to deal with it as well. But if you get multiple issues right there, then it becomes an issue for the city staff to deal with.
Yeah, and noise is one of those hard things. I don't think that we have a decibel meter reader or anything here at City Hall. Um, and I'm not going to try to quote chapter and verse of our noise ordinance or anything here, Gary, but I know that usually it's kind of like, you can reasonably hear. So there is some discretion, I guess, that we give to the officer, and quite frankly, that we give to neighbors in situations like this. Plus, we always have the situation where we always like to remind people, like in parks, or if people are ever going to use a sound system in their neighborhood or anything, there's a noise permit process that they can come through City Hall for specific instances like that.
395-1450, 395-1450. We have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek. It is the first day of October. It has that fall feel weather-wise, which means we need to get ready for clean up, pick up the leaves, rake them to the side. I know our master gardener, Jan Musen, says, get the mulching mower out and ground them down. Well, some people don't have the mulching mowers. They got to, do the raking. And this is not the time to get all the big industrial stuff out of the way, but at least get the leaves out of the way, and you can be able to help in that regard.
Yeah, well, Jan would be happy with me because I would expect this weekend that at least for the first couple weeks, I'll mulch the leaves that are already falling in my grass. But we know that doesn't work for everybody. So yes, it already began where residents, as there's probably not a lot of leaves down yet, but there are starting to come down leaves with this cold week that you can rake them out curbside for pickup. And again, with the emphasis in the fall is it's leaves only, no branches or other type of material that we kind of expand what we allow people to put out in the spring. It's leaves only in the fall. Put those out curbside, and then city staff will kind of monitor when we start getting some of that accumulated, and then we'll make a pass through the city. And we always hope to get that wrapped up by November 15. So when we get, there in the middle of November, that's where we encourage residents to take a look. If in your neighborhood you see that a pass was made and your whole neighborhood is clean after November 15, well, then don't put more leaves out because we're not going to come back.
Yeah, let's be aware of the situation before you do that. Another thing that's coming up a week from Friday for corporate and a week from Saturday for the community, it's time to plant the tulips for the effort with the Tulip Time Festival at the window on the waterfront. The tulip planting's off of 6th, but the city staff, you got to plant at Windmill Island Gardens, the tulip lanes as well. And it does not, let's put it this way, you got to ship in the tulip bulbs from the mother country. It's not a cheap proposition, but at least hopefully you'll have some ready hands to help out, especially at the window on the waterfront.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a nice, sunny, and relatively warm morning that day. I think it's October 10. Does that sound?
It sure does,
right, Gary?
The 9th for the corporate and the 10th, yeah.
The 10th. I'm going to be out there 8 to 10 myself, and maybe even stay a little bit longer that morning and have done it. It's really an enjoyable event. It's a great partnership between Tulip Time and the city. You'll see city staff out there definitely, and you'll see Tulip Time out there in force. I know they've got a great plan to make sure that that's a safe event. Basically, you kind of pair up and spread out, and there's lots of tulip beds out there at Window on the Waterfront, and you can put your hand, I suppose your back a little bit, Gary, into participating in making our community beautiful come next May when those tulips come up and Window on the Waterfront just, bursts with color.
We talked about a little bit with Gwen a word earlier, and I'll bring it up again with you. You got to import the tulips from the mother country because that's the best blossoms go that way. Trying to keep the tulips blossoms from local plantings is just not as smart, and it does not come very cheaply. Obviously, it's budgeted in for the city's efforts, and you get a sense that it's pretty consistent bulb prices, or are they going up, going down? Is the expense even more now or less now? What?
Yeah, I believe we locked the prices in quite some time ago. So we had this neat little thing. I think you guys covered it where we actually tracked the shipment on the ship across the ocean and here. So that's, there's always a lot of confusion where people call us and think Tulip Time is the same as the City of Holland. And of course, we know that Tulip Time is a nonprofit, but the contribution, one of the many contributions that the city makes is we do pay for the tulips that we spread all across the city. So that's been a consistent staple in the city budget. And I think most people would think that has been money well spent for a beautiful city. We're real thankful. You will see our city staff out there right now digging those tulip lanes. We have a lot of ingenuity out there where we have some pretty interesting systems to dig those up and get new dirt in there. And the tulips will be planted here, like you said, in the coming weeks, not only at Window on the Waterfront with the community, but we've got staff out there very consistently working hard also.
And then, of course, once the bulbs are planted, the snow fences get put up because we don't want the animals to take up those bulbs before they're ready to be blossomed.
The deer do apparently really like those tender tulip bulbs. So we're trying to keep them away from that winter feast.
Yeah, and a few years ago, before you came back into town, there was talk about getting some sharpshooters in because the fences weren't in place at the time, and the deer were having a feast. And fortunately, I think we didn't need to bring the sharpshooters. But after all, by the way, bow and arrow hunting season is underway today in Michigan, but you cannot bunt with the bow and arrow within the city limits. There are, if you want to play Robin Hood, go to Sherwood Forest, some ways away, not around here.
Centennial Park is not the place to take your bow and arrow to, Gary.
or Window on the Waterfront as well, hiding in the things and, getting the king's venison. No. Let's not do that.
Yeah, I don't want that phone call.
Good morning. You're on the line with the city manager, Keith Van Beek.
Hi, this is just a quick thank you to Keith. I think last time I'd mentioned something about there's a dip in the road by 9th and Central, and I guess the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so it's fixed, and thank you very much, because I travel that on a regular basis.
All right, thank you very much for the call, and along those lines, another squeaky wheel got taken care of with the Pine Avenue Railroad crossing at 7th there, Keith.
Well, really, I'm going to say thank you to the last caller, but the credit actually goes out to Tammy at the Transportation Department, who always seems to be listening to WHTC in the morning. So she heard that and dropped me a note and said, Keith, I heard that. Let us take care of it. So they did. So I'm happy that caller acknowledged that. Thank you for the thank you. And yeah, we got Pine Avenue fixed. We're just happy for that. I think the traveling public is happy. We have high expectations here. So I will say the transportation guys, when they drove over it, they were like, okay, the railroad crossing was good, but the transition wasn't so great. So you might even see us out there trying to kind of clean up a little bit after it all and make it look a little nicer. But overall, it was much needed, wasn't it, Gary? So we celebrated that, even though the detour was kind of painful last week.
Yeah, a little bit of a pain in the butt. And of course, some people in this building are saying, okay, it was nice to have the light on River and 4th or River and 3rd. Can we get that on a permanent basis to be able to help alleviate some of the issues people are trying to either stop by us or stop by some of the other things on Central Avenue? Just a matter of time, maybe.
Yeah, would we have to call that the Gary Stevens light if we put that up there, Gary?
No. Don't call it me. We'll call it the Juke Van Oss light. Okay.
There you go. That would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, I think, seriously though, we're still very interested in the Waterfront Holland process, and we know that kind of that north downtown, uptown area, 6th Street. Possibilities of taking a look at. The city's talked for a long time about maybe extending college into Window on the Waterfront. And then obviously the community discussions and vision and principles that we have for the JDY site or otherwise. I don't think we're looking to put any traffic controls or anything in right now, but we know that over the next 10 years, I think you're going to see change in that area, and we want to make sure that that's beneficial to the community and travels and flows safely too. So I don't know what it's going to look like, Gary, but I think stuff is going to happen out there.
One final thing, and this will be unfortunately our last chance to chat before the November 3rd general election, but that's going to be an important thing. Get the ballots out, and I know in Georgetown Township, where I live, I got my absentee this week, and I assume more in the city of Holland beginning as well. Get ready for election coming up on November 3rd.
Yeah, I just so appreciate our clerk, Kathy Grimm, and Brenda, her elections assistant, and the whole team over there. They have been just very busy. So absolutely, City of Holland voters, I would really encourage you where if you do want to vote absentee, there's lots of options to do that. You can call into the office and get an absentee application and do that whole process via mail, especially receiving the ballot. And then if you want to deliver the ballot in more personally, during business hours, we have a drop box in the lobby. If you want to do it outside of hours, we have a drop box outside of City Hall. A lot of people are encouraging people to come and vote in person prior, and you can do that. You can come into City Hall and kind of do both steps in that process. Do the application and then wait for us to process that and then get the ballot and then give you the ballot. But I will say that especially with COVID and that we have limitations in our lobby right now, if you choose that option, it's probably not the most smooth or customer service process. So at least now that we're this far ahead of the election, it's probably best to do that first step via mail.
There's a few other things we'd like to chat with Keith Van Beek about, including the 16th Street reconstruction, which should end by the time we chat next month, but we'll hold off on that until next month. Keith Van Beek, the Holland City Manager, want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town program. Wish you and everybody at City Hall well, and look forward to chatting with you again in the month of November.
Always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you. Have a great October.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Keith Van Beek on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.